Gentlemen, how we doing? We all right?
Very well, you?
Good. Yeah. You feeling at home, John? Feet on the table?
No, do you know why it is? Because we've just recorded, haven't we, for 2 and a bit hours?
Yeah.
And we've been here for 3 hours doing ads and
Season.
and my left knee's obviously shot to shit. So it's not. I'm not trying to make me send it home. It's just because my knee's stiff as folk.
Get it rested, John.
Yeah.
Get your feet up.
You've lost some weight. You've lost some weight since last week.
I think that's the fluid I need to tip me over the edge for the weigh-in.
You've lost some weight, what?
Since last week.
Thank you very much. I had a good day Saturday. I had a good night out Saturday. I only put £4 on, so it was a bit of a result, really.
Hope everybody's well.
Yes.
You're going
We're double now, yeah.
Leg,
Yeah, well, that one's stiff as well.
I've noticed people putting the time codes in, actually, on YouTube of when these intros finish.
So shall we start doing it ourselves just to save people
We don't know how long it's going to be. How long should we chat for?
The replies are the best, as if like they've done people a really massissive favour.
Nice one.
Thingy emojis with the hands in the air.
Look, high fives all round.
Thank you, sir. With them prayer emoji, man.
Champagne popping.
We do talk some shit though, don't we?
Yeah. We've got to keep them
Like we
going,
said, they
man.
don't know what they're missing out on. They don't know what they're missing out on. Interesting episode this week.
Well, this is probably the most diverse one we've ever had, I would say.
Yeah. Never played the game of football.
Non-football. Have we had anybody on who's not played
Yeah.
before?
The one who you got the wrong butler.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was that one.
Yeah. So after 250 episodes, it's the second one that's never kicked a ball in his life.
But a really interesting story, and anybody who doesn't know the story, I mean,
basically, it's all focused around Brian Clough, really.
Yeah, picked up as a young lad. I mean, we'll get into it, but picked up as a young lad and by Brian Clough and asked to and basically live with him for 5, 6, 7 years of his life. Insight into
worked down at the club and.
Would it be fair to say, apart from his family, knows him better than anybody?
I'd say, yeah. Apart from immediate family, probably, yeah, on the button.
Knows the family as much as anybody, doesn't he?
Better than anybody, yeah. And some great. I mean, it's just an unbelievable story.
Isn't
We
it?
don't want to spoil it, do we? But because some people, won't know how it materialises. I'm surprised this story isn't more widely known. To be honest, it's more in the books. Unbelievable. Recommend anybody getting it. I have read it. This one.
Timestamp 2 minutes 12.
But I think somebody was disappointed. Like I think 13 minutes 42 seconds to get your guest out, lads. Come on.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what we should do? We should put a false timestamp in, and.
What, and then suddenly it comes up like we're just all there with his assholes are.
Hey! Have a bit of that.
I think we should actually do that though. So cut that bit out, Matty, and we'll catch them by surprise.
We recorded this one at the Fans Museum as well, didn't we?
Some venue, innit?
Yeah.
Some of the memorabilia in there is outrageous.
Yeah.
Obviously not his, but some of the memorabilia in there is outrageous.
Yeah, he's done a lot for the community, hasn't he, Michael?
Yeah. If anybody's not been to the Fans Museum in Sunderland, I'd definitely recommend bobbing down some of the shirts and the medals and everything that they've got in. Not just from Sunderland players, but from
Worldwide
world football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it didn't make the episode, but Craig was saying Nigel Clough tried to sign us both, didn't he?
Yeah.
You
Derby.
I think it was Burton for you in the conference.
Yeah, don't get it
His
yourself,
first job.
John.
Nobody. I think that's what he opened with.
Yeah.
Nigel used to try to sign you too.
Where did he try and sign you?
Sheffield United.
Derby.
He signed Michael Higdon.
Simon tried signing me for doing papers on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a snort. Fuck's sake.
Yeah. I must have gone Fleetwood because he said when I left Cardiff. I were at Cardiff, so I must have gone Fleetwood after that.
And the World Cup is on the horizon, gentlemen.
I'd love to go.
Yeah, I think we should try and go.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to take us, then we'll go. But I think
Free
I think
for a
we
good
should.
home, haven't we?
I think we're hoping to get some good. I don't want to use the word content, but it's on the. I don't know how else would you say it.
That's my biggest pet hate.
You don't like that word, do you?
Branded content.
Content.
Footage. Can we just say footage?
Yeah, it'd be good though, wouldn't it, to go? At least
The
for
thing
group
is,
stage.
it's going to be half boring, isn't it? Because watching it and stuff's going to be crap for the fans and that. At least we'll
Should we try? We should
have
try
Lammed
and
it
go.
up. Thing is though, like what
We
we're
should try
gonna
and go.
what we're gonna do like for drink. You can't drink apart from in these fans part for 2 hours.
Let's get
We'll
to
find a
fan-
way,
we'll get
John.
to bloody fans park.
We'd be
We can get used to them. Have you seen them wine racks? It's like fake breasts. You have to put some more weight back on. They're like fake breasts, and it's like a bra, and it just fills with alcohol.
so basically, I'm going dressed as a bird, am I? Yeah.
Well, no, just put,
In Qatar, by the way.
put a bit more timber
I'll
on,
be
but
fuck-
just keep it off top.
I'll be
And we'll be all right. It'll just be like it was
You
before.
get fucking strung up. But now, I would like to know quite soon if we're going. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because well, it's
No, I think we should try and get out for the World Cup.
I love them videos we did, the Euros.
Yeah.
I
At
think
the
we need
very least, we'll do the
honest
the honest
reactions.
again.
Yeah.
But I think if we can try and get out there, that'll be unbelievable.
I hope we don't get to the final. That's another fucking tough 3 weeks, that innit, Boozy?
We'll curb the diet for that month.
But should we get him out then?
Yeah.
Unbelievable story. This. I'm really looking forward to it.
His
7.
book. You give his book a shout.
Can't remember what it's called. Be good.
Do that again.
Be good. Be good.
Beagle?
Love.
Jeremy
dog.
Beagle.
Be good. Love Brian. It is a bloody good read.
Top rated, isn't it?
It is.
Awards
It's
winner.
won multiple awards.
Multiple.
You boys are too young to even remember Penny for the Guy, aren't you?
Oh no, we used to penny for the guy.
Did you?
Yeah.
So at least when I talk about that, he'll not be totally lost. You look too posh to actually done that.
Nah. Is that when you go trick or treating?
Well, you
it's
just
knocking
sit
the doors?
outside a shop with a fucking
The guy.
a guy fork, and you say penny fork guy when somebody goes into the shop.
We'll get into
And someone either boots you, the guy, or gives you 10 pence. It could be any one of the three.
Maybe, I almost finished the book on the way down. I have a couple of chapters off, but what a life! What an amazing story. We've heard loads about Brian Clough. Like it just what kind of character he was around football, away from football, but you were in and around it and lived it for so many years.
Yeah, I think closer to anyone outside of family.
Yeah,
And the amount of time and, situations we found ourselves in, definitely closer than anyone outside of the family, and probably even closer than some of his distant family.
yeah.
I spent 2 years in the office with him every day.
The lads aren't really aware of the story, the elements of it, but I'm looking forward to hearing just how it all just progresses from start to finish.
Well, I would have read the book, but you've not passed it on yet.
It's-
It's not a library, John.
Huh?
It's not a library.
It's only $9.99, John. I'm sure the fellow you're the dancing fella, aren't you? The fellow with your dancing skills. Stick a video on YouTube.
Fuck
You'll
off. Mate, as if.
That wasn't scripted,
Are you
that.
sure?
I am the dancing fella,
I'm not the dancing
Are
fella.
you not?
No.
but you got some moves.
I'm fucking slimmer than him.
No, somebody messaged on Twitter, said they'd read your book and we need to get you on. That was
Yeah.
only last week, so
Was it? You lads move fast. I mean, it's been brilliant. The book's been out 9 months now. Reaction to it's been incredible. It's been on the Times Sports Book of the Year list last year, the Daily Mail Sports Book of the Year list. The reviews are just incredible. There's the odd one who, for reasons we'll get to later, has given me a bit of stick, which is understandable. But pretty much across the board, it's just been sensational and really, really nice to get that kind of response from it.
12-year-old. How does a 12-year-old from Sunderland end up meeting Brian Clough to start with?
I mean, I think he liked people with big goofy teeth. I had like massive front teeth. We were just nice kids. I mean, weirdly nice kids, but not nice kids because of the background that we had.
what was your background, if you don't mind me asking, mate?
Well, we lived in probably the roughest part of Sunderland, which was Southwick, and we only lived there because we got evicted from the second roughest part. My mum married my mum got divorced when I think I was 2 or 3, but the earliest memory I've got is of my dad smashing a mirror over, my real dad this is, smashing a mirror over my mum's head and us being in the streets crying, getting carted off by social services. So I was in a home from the age of 2 to nearly 4. My brother's 4 years older than me, so obviously he's 6. And my sister was 4 at the time, but they separated us from her. So over 18 months, I didn't even get to see my sister. Then eventually we got reunited. My mum made a genius decision to marry a black Jamaican Geordie drug dealer, which up in Sunderland was frowned upon, but not as much as the fact he was a Newcastle fan.
You can let half of it off, but not the Newcastle
it's like
bit.
he's all right, but nah, come on, stop that. And also he was a hard man, so he never ever kept his head down. You know, there was always trouble at our door. I was incessantly bullied. Used to get called the N lover, beaten up on my way to school every day, you know, literally just for no reason other than my stepbrother Aaron, who I never called stepbrother, by the way. So from now on, when I talk about dad and brother, it's my stepdad and my stepbrother.
Yeah.
My stepbrother was mixed race. And he wasn't the kind of lad who stuck around and fought. So he would get into trouble, and I'm only skinny as a rake, but I had this thing inside of me where if you were fighting one of us, you're fighting us all. So even though I couldn't fight, I tried, which invariably led to me getting the shit kicked out of me, going home with, you know, a spilled sugar bag or something like that, and then getting the shit kicked out of me at home because I dropped the sugar. So it's just a really, really tough life. I mean, we were very well below the poverty line. Lots of times where our electricity's cut off, no water, no food for 4 or 5 days. And my dad would very often, my dad used to like a drink as well as smoking and selling cannabis. Very often my dad would beat my mum and we'd end up in a battered wives' home. Or again, back in children's homes because they couldn't cope with us. So that was our upbringing.
Yeah. Like you said, the times as well, being in that mixed race relationship with your mum, I imagine the racism being a lot more prevalent than it is today.
Yeah, so there's like, you know, 3 or 4 things that really stand out as a kid, not to me. But I remember once my sisters answered the door on a Friday night, and again, my dad's had some bother in town or something like that. My sisters answered the door on a Friday night, and there's this youth just baseball batted her, broke her leg for being an N lover, the daughter of an N lover. There's been a time where we've gone to Alnwick. You might remember, you'll know Alnwick being from Peterlee, Alnwick Castle. That for us is like going to the Bahamas, you know, it's a proper beautiful day out. We've come back, the house has been burgled. There's NF slogans daubed all over the
National
wall.
Front.
Inhuman shit all over the wall. Everything in the house destroyed. And about a week later, there's riots in Southwick where the kids on the streets have hijacked a bus, set bins on fire, and then there's just a massive riot. And our house has been petrol bombed. So there's, you know, it was bad. It was really, really bad.
Did you like football?
I only started playing football after I met Brian. Purely, I couldn't. I mean, again, I'm one of those. I developed pretty late, but I remember being at the junior school, and it's like Plemper, Jackman, Webster, Quinn, Julie, Denise. For fuck's sakes, I'll have Bromfield then. I get picked after the lasses. It was like that.
You like Billy Casper?
Yeah, but then, you know, very, very quickly, I mean, and this is probably down to both Nigel and Scott Gemmell, but I'd go training with, let's not get too far ahead, but they basically taught me how to play. And as soon as I met Brian, I just fell in love with the game. Literally fell in love with it and was out.
So like geographically, obviously Nottingham, Sunderland, how did you get to Nottingham?
So this is where it starts, and I've said already, we used to do anything we could to make money. And one of those things that we did was we used to go penny for the guy in, where we'd make a guy out of, I was going to say old clothes, but actually the guy was smarter than us. So we'd make a guy and we'd stand outside pubs just asking the drunk people for money, a penny for the guy, mister. Yeah. And one night we discovered the Seaburn Hotel, which is just literally opposite the beach, and the Forest team was staying there. And the night's surreal because we shouldn't have gone. I explained this, you know, everything's a massive coincidence because we weren't meant to be going. We had this rule where we couldn't go until 2 weeks before, because if you went out any earlier, it would just piss people off. And they'd like, what you're doing, you know, it's too early. And this night was 2 weeks and 1 day before, but it was a Friday night. So Aaron said, look, most of the people get paid tonight. And again, those times, you get your pay in a brown envelope. You get out on a Friday night. If
You're entrepreneurial ragamuffins, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're thinking about when people are getting paid and making the most of it.
This is how Darren was just, he was off the scale genius. But also we were lovely little kids, but it was done for manipulation. We knew we were being cute, but we weren't being cute because we were cute. We were being cute because that's going to help us.
Yeah.
And Darren was like that. Darren used to teach us how to behave in front of everybody to maximise our chances of getting something off him, to maximise our chance of not getting caught off the store detectives, stuff like that. So anyway, Aaron's basically said, look, Friday night, let's go down. We had some bother with a skinhead who used to come around pretty much every year and just cause trouble with us. And this night, we've only got one guy, and there's only me and Aaron. Aaron's at the back, I'm at the front, so there's no escape for people. They can't get out either way.
What the one who's not got the guy then? Just penny for the guy round the front?
Yeah, we haven't, literally... But you haven't got a guy. Honest, mister, I have gone to see my brother around the corner. And that's the thing. I wrote about it, I knew it wasn't going great because nobody had come round to say your brother sent me. So I'd made about 12 pence. Aaron had made probably 3 or 4 pence. And this is at the poshest hotel in Sunderland, the tight bastards. And this skinhead's come, and he usually tried to either take all of our money or just kick the guy all over the street. And he just triggered something in me. He's gone something like, where is everybody? And I said, I'm nervous that he's going to fight with me again. So I'm saying, no, they're round the back and they're coming now. So if there's 4 of them, he won't pick on me. And then he's turned around and he said, and where's that little bastard? And I've gone, so what that he's black? And he's not a bastard, he's got a dad. And the lad just turned around and started hoofing into me. 2 lads came out of the Indian restaurant behind us, started chasing him off. And as they've done that, there's 4 or 5 Forest players coming along the seafront. They've caught up with us and lads, what are you doing? Is everything okay? We've explained what we're doing. I had no idea who it was. I honestly thought it was the Sunderland basketball team. Aaron's they've got a tree on the pocket. So they've gone into they gave us 150 between them. So the night's obviously turned around pretty sharpish already.
You don't mind taking a run and keeping for 150, do you?
Well, I've got the 150 in my sock just in case he comes back. And then Aaron's gone, look, let's get off the front just in case he comes back. We'll both go around the back. We've gone around the back, and there's a fella called Kenny Swain. All the players have gone out for a walk, and Kenny's just come back in by himself. And I've just I've said to him, mister, my brother thinks you're the Sunderland basketball team, which obviously I thought they were. And he turned around and said, no, son. He said, we're a football team. We're Nottingham Forest. We're playing Newcastle tomorrow. And I'm like, Newcastle. I said, my brother and dad support them, but I hate them. And he looked at me and I said, I don't mean I hate my dad and my brother. I hate Newcastle. And he's had a little chuckle. And I said, look, you got a penny for the guy? And he's patted his pockets, said, I've got no change, which everybody used to do. I'll come back down in a couple of minutes. And we thought we'd never see him again. He came back down about 5 minutes later, gave us a £5 on his own.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
A £5, literally, yeah. And then we've asked him for the autographs, and he's gone back in, got a few of the players' autographs, Peter Davenport, Pringle, Johnny Medgod, people like that, but a lot of them had gone to bed. So he's and I didn't know who he was. I didn't ask him his name or anything, yeah. So he's gone, look, lads, most of them have gone to bed, but if you want, you can come back in the morning and get the rest of the players' autographs. Again, probably think they'd never see us. I've gone home and I've got my Panini album out, Panini 84, looking to see if I can, because you can't read the signatures. Sure, you are the same, when you sign, it's just as fast as you can. But I could make out Kenny, and I've just gone through and I've looked, and it's he's the only Kenny in the Forest page, so it must be him.
You matched up the photograph from seeing him.
Well, we didn't have a photograph. I couldn't
in
really
the sticker book.
Yeah, I couldn't afford the stickers. I only used
Just had to put the name underneath.
I used to get my mates swaps. That's how I used to fill the book. Once my mates got a swap, they'd give it over to me. So I'm the only sticker I had in the book in the Forest page was the badge.
Right.
Little silver shiny thing. So anyway, I'm looking at that. And then I'm like, he's give us a $5. We've already got most of the autographs. There's no point going back down, do you know what I mean? And again, it's Aaron who said, look, let's get down. We were down there like 7 o'clock in the morning waiting for them on the beach. Freezing cold October morning, October the 20th, 1984. He shouted me over. I thought he'd found something. I thought he'd found a quid. He shouted me over and he started pointing. And he's like, look. And Aaron's just pointed to one bloke with a purple jacket with his collar up. And he's gone, that's Brian Clough. And I've gone, who? And he's gone, it's Brian Clough. He's a really famous football manager. Go and ask him if Kenny's up. But he shouts a lot. And I'm like, what? Walked up to him. Morning, Mr. Clough. Can you tell me Kenny Swain up yet, please? And he's like, hey, Mr. Clough. He said, Mr. Clough. He said, good lad. He said, does your mum tell you to call me Mr. Clough? And I said, yeah, until we get to know you better, we've got to call you Mr. Clough. And he's like, we get to know me better, you cheeky little shit. And he's like, right, what can I do for you? Why do you need Kenny? And we explained the story from the night before. And he's looking us up and down. He's like, bloody hell, where's your coats? It's freezing. Does your mum know you're here? And you look like you haven't had anything to eat for like a couple of weeks. Come with me. You can come into the hotel. We'll get you some breakfast. We'll get you the rest of the players' autographs. And then you can off back home and everybody's happy. And that's exactly what we did. We went in the hotel. We had breakfast. Players all sat around like, what is going on here? You know, who are these two? We were explaining now we met Kenny the night before. Kenny's thinking, oh, God, what do I got myself in for? And just making them laugh. Like laughing and joking. They're watching whatever it is, BBC Focus, Sports Focus or Football Focus on their Saturday morning before the game. Kenny's just come up to us after about 20 minutes, half an hour and said, listen, the gaffer thinks you relax the players. Do you want to come to the game with us on the bus? We'll take you to the game. We'll give you tickets. You'll have to come home by yourself. But, you know, do you fancy coming to the game? So we went to the Newcastle game. It finished 1-1. We left after like 65 minutes. It was that cold, and again we didn't have jackets. Courts. And I felt guilty because we hadn't stayed to say thank you. You know, we left early. They'd gone all the way out the way to give us those tickets. They'd left early. So the next morning, I wrote a letter to Brian, Mr. Brian Clough, manager, care of Nottingham Forest Football Club. Blah, 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 blah. And just wrote him a letter saying, listen, thanks very much. It was incredible what you did. We really loved meeting you. Thanks for giving us such a special day. And
you know, when you first saw him coming on the beach at that time, what, 84 did you say?
Yeah.
So by that time, he's won the league, 2 European Cups.
Yeah.
He's one of the most recognised managers in football.
He's on television every week. He's outspoken.
And from your perspective, you wouldn't have recognised him.
No, I think it took me quite a while to realise how big he was. I think if I'd have realised how big he was, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
You know, you would have had that nervousness, but again, just like childlike naivety, you know, just natural and normal.
And do you think, because a lot of what we've heard about, Brian, is about the respect as well, and you've gone over straight away and you've Mr. Clough.
Yeah, he loved it. I mean, pure luck. You know, just pure luck. But he loved that. He also loved the fact I think, I mean, people will be able to see, you know, we're in Sunderland's museum up here.
Yeah, in the fans museum.
He's an absolute god still up here. I think he got something ridiculous like 63 and 74 as a player. The season he got injured, he'd got 26 goals before Christmas and then got injured on Boxing Day. And he always said the happiest time of his life as a player was here up in Sunderland because they welcomed him so much. It's weird because he's a Middlesbrough lad and he loved Middlesbrough, but for different reasons. He never felt accepted. But playing-wise, you know, I don't know if you lot even realise this. 251 in 274. Fastest player in history to get to 200 league goals. Fastest player in history to get to 250 league goals. Still.
Yeah, I never knew about anything about his playing career.
Four seasons in a row, 40 goals plus.
Yeah.
Absolutely unbelievable. So, you know, you can tell that you can kind of start to understand why he's a little bit edgy and he's got something about him because even as a player, he was special.
Doing it.
Yeah. And he could back it up.
And he had that affection for Sunderland.
I loved Sunderland people. At least 2 of his kids, I think Nigel and Simon, were born here. I'm not sure if Elizabeth was or if she was just missed, but both of his kids born here, obviously apart from his injury. But even his injury, he still kind of enjoyed that rehabilitation time because he's running along the beach. People are showing him love, asking him when he's coming back kind of thing. So he loved it up here, and that was also a big part of it, 2 Sunderland, little scruffy underdogs. I want to give them an experience that they're not likely to have.
Yeah. Being opportunist, did you take the guy back the next morning?
Nah, Darren asked us. My brother said, look, just take it down on Saturday morning and see what it's like.
For a penny.
We get a fiver off every player. For a fiver. He might even get a new green sweater, the guy.
That night we ended up with, because again, Kenny gave us a fiver, but then he had a whip round from the rest of the players. Like, lads, look at what these boys are doing, and they're doing it to try and buy the mum Christmas presents. So we ended up that night with like 14 or 15 quid, when after 2 hours we had 13 pence. So even that, you know what I mean? That was just like, that was as big, if not bigger, than what actually happened football-wise.
What followed the letter then? You sent the letter.
He wrote us back and said, look, really glad, tell your mum you did it proud. The lads really enjoyed meeting you. And by the way, next time we're in Newcastle or Sunderland, come and see us. And at that point, Sunderland were in the second division, so in the Championship now, but Sunderland were in the second division, Newcastle were in the first. And about 2 weeks later, this is what I mean about coincidences, about 2 weeks later, they got drawn against Sunderland in the League Cup. We're sitting on the radio, the chances are they'd only be up at Newcastle once a season, and not at all at Sunderland. They got drawn against Sunderland in the League Cup. I think they got drawn against Newcastle in the FA Cup. Then, of course, season after Sunderland get promoted, they draw Newcastle again in the League Cup. So it was like it was fate.
Yeah.
Every time they came up to Sunderland or Newcastle, they stayed at the C-Bahn apart from once, and we'd be there waiting for the coach to come.
I was going to say that, like, point of contact, obviously phone calls, no mobile phones. Is it just your invitation means getting to the hotel or the ground before the buzz?
Yeah.
And just stand there waiting when the buzz comes.
Pretty much.
Mr. Clough.
Pretty much. We just kept getting to know them better and better and better. Then Swaney's got transferred to Portsmouth. And we weren't sure at that point if we should still go, because to be honest, we were spending time with Brian, but it was really Kenny Swaney who was babysitting us and looking after us and sitting with us on the bus. So Swaney got transferred to
So did you go to the bus every time? Go to the game every time then?
Yeah. Yeah, we'd be at the hotel, they'd get us tickets.
Did you go on the buzz to the game?
Yeah. Yeah, and once he's dropped us back, we got him to drop us back at Thompson Park because we didn't want to take him into Southwick. So we're like, we just live over there, posh houses. We didn't tell him. I mean, he must have guessed, He obviously knows we're not flush. But yeah, he dropped us off at Thompson Park because we didn't want to take him into Southwick. But typically we'd just get to Newcastle or Sunderland, and then Sunderland was a short walk home. When they played those games. Newcastle's a train ride.
And was your quality life still, because I'm guessing it was a couple of years down the line from your first meeting.
Yeah.
Was your quality of life for you and Aaron still pretty shit?
It started getting better in, I think it's, again, I shouldn't be sketchy with dates, but I think it's 85 we played them in the League Cup. Or it might have been late 84, where Sunderland have ended up getting to the final, and I think Forest have played them at home, and we get off the team bus. We get off the team bus with the Forest players, and standing right next to the team bus at the entrance, it's the lads who used to, literally my biggest bullies, and I've got off the bus and just, froze, and Brian's gone, "What's wrong, son?" And I've gone, "Oh, them's the lad who kicked the shit out of me and Aaron." And he's like, "Right, get back on the bus, sit down." And he's got off the bus, walked up to the 4 lads and gone, they've asked him for any tickets, and he's gone, "Listen, I hear you have a little bit of bother with the 2 pals of mine on the bus. First of all, there's 4 tickets. You can do anything you want with them. You can sell them. I'd prefer you come and watch the match, but you can sell them if you want. But secondly, I know where you live. I know your mums. And if I hear you ever raising a finger to either of these 2 again, I'm coming up to sort you out." And the lads have just gone. And after that, it got a little bit better, because then, they'd send us a football up. We'd get we'd get kit and stuff like that. So we play football in the street, but it's us with the Adidas Tango ball. So we're suddenly like, we've gone from being little scruffy kids who everybody bullies to being the kids that want to come and play outside our door with our ball. So it just started gradually changing. And then, as I mentioned, I got a little bit better at football, and I was so tired about being bullied that the only place I couldn't get bullied was on the football pitch. So people could kick the shit out of me, but I wouldn't hide. And that got me respect. Because, you know, you start getting kicked and then you go looking for the player who's kicked you rather than hiding from him. That helped as well. So by the time we got to like, I'd say 87, we were almost accepted. I mean, there was still the racial abuse, but we weren't quite bullied as much. But we were still poor as dormice. People have asked me if I knew it was so special. No. When Swaney got transferred to Portsmouth, they came and stayed in the hotel, the same hotel. Swaney's obviously an experienced pro, whether Alan Boyle's asked him whether he should stay or not, but they've come to stay in the same hotel. So we've rocked down there again to come say hello to Kenny. And I honestly, this is how much I expected. I took my toothbrush with me because I expected Alan Boyle to take us down to his house for a holiday afterwards because Brian had done it. And when he didn't, I'm like, you squeaky voiced little bastard. he made Kenny Swain pay for the tickets, whereas Brian would always give us comps and stuff like that, you know. So that was kind of the first point that I started thinking, well, maybe this isn't normal. This is not like what every football club does and every football manager does. So it took a while, but it got there.
Yeah. So you talk about going down to, we've not talked about that moment then. So you go back every time Forest come up. So at what point then do you end up going to his house? This
is one of the like happiest memories I've got of a shit memory. So this time they're playing Newcastle, and we've gone down to the hotel. We're waiting there, like, you know, they're playing evening game. We've gone down to the hotel, we're waiting there early, and they just don't show up. So we've waited like an hour and a half. Everything that comes into the car park, we're like waiting for it, hoping it's going to be the bus, and it's not. And eventually Aaron sent me into the hotel to go and talk to the guy who always chases us. And I'm like, listen, mister, you know we're meant to be going to the game because he always invites us. There's like something must have gone wrong. He's tried to ring us, but we haven't got a phone. And he's like, they're not staying here. I'm like, oh shit, what do you mean they're not staying here? He's gone, they've changed their mind. They've gone to stay in some posh hotel just outside Washington. But we used to live in Glebe in Washington, so we knew the area well. So then it was a question of like whether we had time to get to the hotel and meet them there, or whether we should just go straight to the game. And Aaron's gone, look, we don't know if he's invited us. We can't just show up. So when I've come out of the hotel, talking to the fella who said they're not coming, I've lied to Aaron. I've said, listen, the guy behind the counter's talked to them, told them we're on our way to the game, and Brian said it's all right. Otherwise, our Aaron wouldn't have come. So I've like, then we're getting to the Newcastle game, and I'm like, okay, now what happens if he blanks us? Now Aaron's going to absolutely nag me, and he's gonna just destroy me. And we're queuing. Again, I've gone to there's an old boy outside the gate, the doorman, and they're keeping everybody back. I've gone up and talked to him nice and polite. Hello, mister. Can you tell me if Mr. Clough and the Forest team is here yet? He's like, piss off, you scruffy little twat. And I'm like, come on, mister, that's not fair. I'm saying, I'm friends of Brian. I'm from Sunderland. I'm friends of Brian. And I'm like, and then he's gone, I said, piss off, you scruffy little gap-toothed Mac I'm supporting. And take the little darkie with you, which is Aaron. And take the little darkie with you before I call the police. Oh, Jesus Christ, I've just like, again, gone. So the teams rolled in. Brian seen us, waved us over, took us onto the bus. We've got on the bus. I've said to Brian, you see that man there? This is what he said to us. And he's like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, he's basically told us to off. He's called out Aaron this, he's said this, that, and the other. And Brian's gone, right, leave it with me. So we've got off the bus. I'm literally alongside Brian, and Brian used to jog. He had this thing where he like jog and scuff his feet. And he's getting there, and I'm like, Brian, it's him. It's him, pointing to the old boy. It's him. Brian's looking at me. And he's just gone to the old boy on the door. He's gone, "Good evening, sir. These two gentlemen are with me," and walked straight through. And I'm like, I thought you said you were going to sort him out. If that was my mum would have like had him on the floor. She'd be kneeing him. She'd be pulling his hair out and everything. And this guy who's supposed to be really scary, he's done nothing. He's just waltzed through. I thought he was going to stick up for us. So I'm like a little bit upset about that. But anyway, this is the first time they've actually physically took us into the dressing room. So we're in the dressing room with the players before the game. Brian said to us, "Look, like I've got work to do for 15 minutes. Bugger off out onto the pitch with the players. Keep yourself busy." So we've walked out with like Ian Bowyer, again, Kenny Swain, Peter Davenport, Steve Hodge, Steve Wigley, Steve Sutton, Chris Fairclough, legends of that period, the period just before the rebuild, the second great team. And again, Aaron's getting racist abuse, spitting at us, all kinds of things. But we sit in the dugout for the game, and we beat Newcastle. I think it's either 3-0 or 3-1. I'd have to look it up, but fairly sure it's 3-1. And we were expecting to go home. We're in the dressing room. Brian's told us, like, at the end of the game, just make sure you help the boys, get them a drink, some chewing gum. If they want anything sorted out, a cup of tea, but also pick the kit up, throw the tie-ups in the bin, and just make sure the place is left pretty clean and tidy. So Aaron's sitting down reading the programme. I'm like running around like a blue-ass fly doing all of that stuff. And Brian's just gone, "How are you boys getting home?" And we've said we're getting the train. And he's gone, I'm not having you getting the train this time of night. He's gone, "I'll tell you what, why don't you come down to Nottingham for a while?" He's turned to Ronnie Fenton. He's gone, "Ronnie, they can stay with you, can't they?" And Ronnie Fenton's face has just gone like white as a sheet. So, "What do you mean they can stay with me?" And he's going, "Yeah, they'd stay with you for a couple of days. Get the mum on the phone. Tell them they're coming down to Nottingham with us, and tell her not to worry. It's Brian Clough who's asking." So he sent Jim McNally to make a phone call to the neighbours.
And do you think that Brian like, just from your appearance, had you spoke to him about the situation at all?
No, I didn't tell him the truth until much later, and even then I didn't tell him the whole truth.
But do you think he might have an inkling that maybe things weren't?
He knew something was going on because they brought us jackets up for Christmas. We got 2 big Forest jackets because we're always cold. Brought us jackets up for Christmas, and my mum and dad sold them. £10 each. Next time we saw him, he was like, "Where are your jackets?" Bloody hell, we had to explain to him, we didn't have any money, we didn't have any food, so my mum and dad sold the jackets. Right. So he knew there was something going on. Yeah. And that was with everything, even our Christmas presents. So we never owned anything.
Even that, though, that they've actually thought about sending you jackets.
It's just unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, just even, before it gets big, it was massive. We felt like the most special kids in the world doing what we'd done up until the point where he invited us down. And we had no clue he was going to invite us down. But just the way they'd kept in touch, imagine what it's like for 2 Sunderland lads getting off the team bus in Sunderland and facing your mates and walking into the Sunderland dressing room. It's just unreal for us too,
I'm quite cynical, mate. Like nowadays with social media, about people virtue signalling and whatever, doing everything for
the camera,
how they look. But back then, he's not doing it so people write an article or get on Sky Sports News and this is what Brian Clough's done.
None of it.
No reason for him to do it.
Not at all.
Do
Just, he had, you can go back, and I do quite regularly. I can still listen to him 24 hours a day. He's brilliant. He talks about being a socialist. He talks about every kid should have a nice classroom, every kid should have a nice book, every kid should be able to eat. And he lived that. He didn't just say it, he lived it. He was so generous with his everything, with his money, with his time, with his possessions. And I mean, I was on the end of it a couple of years later where we've gone to a game, I think it's Crystal Palace away, and it's raining. And there's this little kid outside waiting for the autographs, and he didn't have his coat on. And Brian's gone to me, "Look, get your jacket off and give it to him." And I'm like, I used to get jealous of other kids getting attention from him. I used to get jealous, think I was the only one. So I'm like, "Look, glad he's not getting my jacket." It's 65 quid. And he's gone, "Rigger, get the jacket off, son. Anyway, you'll nick another one of mine tonight."
Where does Rigger come from? Sorry.
Rigor mortis. He called me rigor mortis because he used to have this reclining chair in his lounge in the posh lounge. That's his chair for the, he's reading his newspaper, looks out over the beautiful view. But it's one of those where you pop the side and it goes up. And I think the second time down there, I was in his chair and I shouldn't have been. Mrs. Clough's come in. She's gone, you do know that's Brian's favourite chair, don't you? And I've gone, I'm just watching Bugsy Malone. She started laughing. Brian's come in. He's like, son, are you ever going to move from that chair? Aaron's out. Aaron's out mowing the lawn, doing circles around his trees. And I'm sitting there eating chocolate Yorkies, biscuits, drinking milk and watching Abbott and Costello and everything like that. And he's gone,
In his chair?
Yeah. He's gone, you lazy little bugger, do you ever move? Well, I'm going to have to get a crane to get you up out of that. To lift you out of my chair. And that's when he started calling me rigor mortis because I was so stiff.
So did you speak to your mum about going down?
No, he didn't speak to my mum at all about going down. Jim McNally did.
Right.
And Jim McNally's like, how do I explain this to your mum? I mean, imagine that, imagine social services today getting something like that, saying, a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old kid are going to stay in a stranger's house for a week. And Jim McNally's just rang my mum and said, it's Brian Clough who's asking. My mum's gone, fair enough, hope they have a good time. She didn't even know when we're coming back. It's like a couple of days.
Can you imagine being
No
at a
idea
club
when we're coming back.
and your manager saying, just go and ring these lads' mums and just tell them they're coming back with us.
Who was
What would
the
you say?
player? Who was the player that he said you can stay with you?
Ronnie Fenton. Ronnie Fenton's the coach.
He must have been fuming, man.
So that was the time, where you're a kid and you're in a room of adults. This is what I mean about we were smart. I used to be able to judge the room. You can judge sometimes people's reactions, not from what they say, but what they don't say. And Ronnie Fenton's just his face, and I'm like, oh, Ronnie doesn't fancy this. Ronnie doesn't.
I don't think many would.
I don't think Ronnie's wife would either. Just to let you know, Doris, we've got a couple of kids from the northeast stopping with us for I don't know how long, but they're stopping.
But Mrs. Clough had no idea we were going. Travelling down on the bus, even the players are like, bloody hell, some of them only met us once, some of them twice. They drinking beer.
And they must be looking at coach saying, who are these two?
Yeah,
These
what the
two
hell?
whippersnappers on here.
What the hell is going on?
In my coat, in my fucking forest coat.
Nigel's sub, but I didn't know Nigel was his son. And there's a brilliant thing later on where, because I'm going on the team bus so often, this is when I know Nigel. Nigel just took me to one side and said, listen, there's a rule on the bus. Anything that gets said, you cannot ever go back to my old man about it. Doesn't matter who says it, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter if it's you it's happening to. What happens on the back of this bus stays on the back of this bus. And that's why Nigel, I think, had a lot of respect from his teammates, because
You separated
yeah, totally.
the father-son.
Well, absolutely. So anyway, we had no idea it's Nigel. We get to the San Diego Hotel just off the M1. One of Brian's mates comes to pick us up. And we're heading off to Quan in his house at this point. He's decided we're staying with him.
Just halfway down A1. Fuck it. Look and stop a minute.
You might as well, eh? You might as well. And we get outside his drive. And the fellow who's with him is a guy called Mike Keeling, who's his agent, kind of, yeah? Friend, but agent. And Mike's gone, Brian, I've got an idea. And I'm like, oh, shit, what's going on here? Brian had got us out to explain some rules. He's like, right, you can call me anything you want, lads. You can call me Big Ed, Shithouse, Brian, anything, I don't mind. Simon, Nigel is Nigel, Elizabeth is Elizabeth, or if she likes you, you can call her Libby. But Mrs. Clough is Mrs. Clough. And if I ever hear anything else coming out of your mouths again, I'll knock you two big bloody heads together. And then he sent us up the drive. He's waited at the bottom of the drive. He sent us up the drive. He's gone, right, like Dallas. Imagine for us, coming from a council estate. This house is beautiful, but it's dark. Trees going up either side, forks off to the garage. Then it's like side on, the kitchen's there and the front there. Then a beautiful dining room there. And he's gone, the door on the right-hand side. I want you to ring the doorbell. And when this woman answers, it's going to be Mrs. Clough. Tell her that you're my two kids from Middlesbrough and you come down to get some money from me and you're not moving from the doorstep until you get it. Bearing in mind, Aaron's brown and I'm white. So I've gone up. I'm like, Aaron, you do the talking. I'm like, this is going to be difficult. Aaron, you do the talking. Aaron's got to the door, rang the bell. Mrs. Clough comes out, beautiful blue velvet dressing gown, hair in curlers. Now then, Pets, what can I do for you? Aaron's just bat, totally stuttered. So I've explained it. I've gone with 2 kids. We've come down. And she's like, how did you get here? And I'm like, Brian hasn't told us what to say. Like, after she starts asking us questions, I'm like, we walked. She's gone, you walked? She's gone, you walked? Yeah, we walked. And she's gone, well, he's not here. He'll be back like in a bit, but he's not here yet. You better come in and wait. Took us in to wait. This is before any explanation. Took us in to wait. Get your shoes and socks off. Get yourself sat down. I'll make you some cheese sandwiches and a cup of Horlicks. Mrs. Clough's gone off to the kitchen. Brian's like rolled in. Has she twigged us yet, lads? And we're like, not yet. Still, Mrs. Clough's asking us questions like, you say these kids, and then other people are walking in, and we're having to explain all of this kind of stuff, nervous. Brian's hiding in his study, and then I don't know what happened. He tripped over a box of milk tray or something like that, laughing. And obviously he's then come in and explained the story. And I'm just sitting there thinking, I don't know why he got us to do that, because even like the real true stories, ridiculous enough. But yeah, he got us to knock on the door and tell Mrs. Clough for his kids, and we're down for some money.
What must she have been thinking?
She was unreal.
Like you said, the real story is just as mind-blowing enough.
She was beautiful right from day one, you know. Again, like the next morning we've woken up and all we've got is the gear that we've got on, and that's scruffy enough, you know. So first day, Mrs. Clough took us shopping to Park Farms shopping estate or shopping centre, just totally kitted us out and everything. It's like Pretty Woman. We're going, we're trying all kinds of new things on. And that was the first time I got proper underpants. I'm like walking around the house in my underpants, looking in the mirror, just going, hey, how cool do I look here? And these proper like cool 3 pairs in a little package. She was just beautiful. The whole family were straight away. It never felt for one moment that we weren't like accepted by all of them, by Nigel, Simon and Elizabeth.
This is like the double European Cup winning manager. Fetching 2 random lads into his house.
The first time I walked into his study, and again, you know, you take a while to learn how big he is, but the first time you walk into his study, there's like a signed picture from Frank Sinatra. There's a picture of him with Muhammad Ali. There's a picture of him with Barry Sheen, I think it is, with Mikey Arwood and people like that all around his study. And the one that I noticed of is Muhammad Ali. Like, Jesus Christ, you know, it's Brian Clough and Muhammad Ali. How big is this fella? And Brian obviously always used to joke that Muhammad Ali met him once.
A quick word for our sponsors from this episode, gentlemen.
Who have we got, Chris?
You know, we've got NordVPN, the best VPN service in the business.
Big brownie points as well. Somebody messaged. He went to Australia to visit family, and he unleashed the NordVPN and watching all the 3 p.m. games back home.
Oh, were they? There you go.
Unbelievable. He was over the moon.
Yeah, because for those who don't know, NordVPN, sponsoring the show, the best VPN service there is. You can bounce your location wherever you are in the world, so you can pick up them TV shows in different countries, and also, you know, use different services that you might not be able to use.
And save a few quid in the meantime.
Yes, and military style security.
I wanted to say that this time, military.
Go on.
Military style.
I prefer it when you say it, John.
Military
Security.
style what?
So that little poop, that. Military style.
Security. And your password, your bank details, everything's secure.
Tell us the offer, Chris.
Are you ready for this?
I think I know it, but
4 months free. Absolutely free. And a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So no risk. If you don't like it, you get your money back.
yeah.
Before 30 days.
Yeah. All you're going to do is follow the link in the description, audio and on the video as well. The link's in the description, and just click on that link, click-a-roo, and you're through to the offer.
And watch whatever
Undr
you
The
want,
Cosh
wherever
offer.
you are.
Kick back, Australia, watch the match.
Yeah.
During, that period of growth for that second coming, if you will, For your personal situation, what happened? How much time are you spending around the team, and how often are you going up? And
I jumped a bit, and I do that. Sorry, I can talk for England. So 88, between 85 and 88, we go down pretty much every school holiday. Right. Not every, but pretty much.
Like three weeks at a time, like all the school holidays?
So however long the school holiday is, apart from the 6 weeks. In the 6 weeks, we went down for 2 weeks.
Right.
But every other school holiday, however long the holiday is, we're there. So it's like 4 times a year. And again, apart from the 6 weeks holidays, it's all during the season. So wherever we're going, or whoever we're playing, we get to see those games, again, stay in this house. And then in 1988, Aaron joined the army. And again, at that point, I'm like not sure, because I think Aaron's the favourite. Aaron's the one who does all the chores. He does his trees perfect. He really likes him. He really makes him laugh.
So are you on these vacations, are you grafting then? Are you cutting his lawns? And
I tried to get away with as much as I could.
but were you like, you had to sort of earn your keep?
I wouldn't say earn our keep, but he loved his garden. So he used to have us sweep his drive and stuff like that, but he'd also have apprentices do it. I mean, I remember Mark Crossley, the day after he's made his debut against Liverpool, maybe 2 days after, Brian's got him up sweeping the leaves off his drive, just to bring him back down to earth. Norm always tells the story about the playing in goal for Simon's side, Sunday League. And I need to pull him up on this, because I also played for that team. He talks about them being Derbyshire Sunday League 7. We were Prem, Norm.
It were a big game for you, Norm.
You cheeky bugger. We used to have, apart from the games I played, we used to have a decent side. But it was like Clough, centre back, Clough, right back, Clough, right wing, Clough, central midfield. It's basically his brothers and his cousins, and then another mix of like 4 or 5 decent players around it. That was a great team to play for.
Did you used to take your training in that?
Yeah. And again, that's how I developed as a player. I've talked about this a lot. Scott Gemmell. So Scott was probably, Nigel's a couple of years older, but Scott was like only 1 year older than me, or maybe 2. And Scott almost took me under his wing. So we used to go and Scott also played for Hunters for a season and a half, I think. I remember him getting subbed when he's playing centre midfield because he wasn't doing enough.
What, for the AC Hunters?
Yeah. And I'm like on the right-hand side. I can't remember if I ever played alongside him, but when I tell the story, I did. I'm either on the sideline or on the bench thinking, hang on a second, I'm better than Scott Gemmell here. But we used to go and practice and stuff like that in a little park in Derby. Football mad, Scott was. And we'd practice it in the bar. One side of the goal, one the other side of the goal, and you hit the bar. If you miss it, it obviously goes over and it's the next person's turn. And it got to the stage where I could pretty much hit the bar from anywhere, 25 yards out, even out wide, I could hit the bar. And I blame Scott Gemmell for ruining my football career, because I went on to play like 14 or 15 seasons, sometimes decent level, but usually just like semi-decent level Sunday League. And I think I scored 6 goals from open play, but I hit the bar 1,476 times. I make this joke all the time. It wasn't for Scott Gemmell, I'd have a better scoring record than Pele.
So eventually it went beyond, though, just coming down at holidays, and you were down in Nottingham full time, living with
I'd had
Brian and Nigel and everyone.
3 or 4 weeks after the summer school holidays. Aaron had gone to join the army. I'd been down there about 5 weeks. We played Everton away, and that was meant to be the game where I went back home. We played Everton at Goodison, 2nd or 3rd game of the season. And the reward for after, if they played well, was a trip to St Andrews, the golf course.
For the players?
In Scotland.
For the players?
Yeah. And Brian had, even though they'd arranged a testimonial, Brian had said, if you don't play well here, and this is mid-season, by the way, or just, not mid-season, but just after the start of the season, it's not a pre-season friendly. If you don't play well here, I don't care, you're not going. So they played Everton off the park, but drew 1-1. And then Brian's meant to be dropping me off as they're driving up whatever it is, the M62, the A1, to get to to Scotland. He's meant to be dropping me off at Scotch Corner. And I'm sitting with the players and I'm like getting upset because I don't really want to go back. And he just pops his, actually it's Alan Hill, pops his head around the corner and says, the gaffer wants a word. And I've walked down, he said, Brian's gone, have you ever been to Scotland before? Obviously, no, not really been anywhere other than where you've took me. And he's gone, I'll tell you what, son, why don't you come and stay with the lads for another 3 days? You can play a bit of golf, get some sun on your back, and then we'll drop you off on the way back home. So I'm like, jackpot, another 3 days. Stay in a beautiful hotel at St Andrews. I get to caddy on the championship course, ordering like proper a la carte meals, nicking St Andrews logos. Oh,
It must have been good around the lads, you know, because it's nice to be nice, isn't it? And invite somebody down and having you on the buzz and in the dressing room. But to say, do you know what, you can have another 3 days. You must have been doing some good, like you said, to relax the lads. If you're a bit of a shit and you're a bit, you know, under everybody's feet, a bit annoying, it's like, right.
Yeah.
I didn't see him lose very often. You know, I think that's another thing as well. When I was there, they didn't lose many games. And we'll jump forward a bit to talk about that. But I was good around the lads. I tried to do my bit, but I was also cheeky. I mean, you'll know the banter on football buses and inside dressing rooms, it can be brutal. Absolutely. Like some of the stuff that would fly at me and I'd just come back with something. Yeah. And I'm like, only 15. And Des Walker gets done by a 15-year-old kid in the banter stand.
The rest of the lads must have loved it.
It's like, look, Des, man, just sit down and shut up. The kid's done, yeah. So there was definitely that as well. Yeah. And I learnt really quick to kind of bat back. So anyway, we've done that. I'm thinking I'm nicking the cool dressing gowns from the St Andrews. I'm the only one out of the whole squad with my own room. Everybody else is rooming with somebody and stuff like that. We go down to pay the bill at the end of the 3 days. You know, I'm about to just get on the bus. And Paul White, who's the secretary at the time, comes up and he's like, what the? I had to bill 4 times more than any of the players because I'd been ordering room service and ice creams and saunas and spas.
I can just imagine you like Kevin McAllister. You're an Overlord 2. 2 scoops. 1 scoop or 2, so 3 I ain't driving.
Literally, I'm having like a cucumbers over my eyes and all kinds of stuff. 2 of the green dressing gowns in my bag, and Paul White's like, you better put them back. But I had a bill like at least twice as many. They've got like bar bills and stuff, you know, so you imagine I must have tanked it. Anyway, we're going back down, and this time I'm going home. And we get to one of the service stations, like, I don't know what, 50 or 60 miles before Scotch Corner. And I can feel my bottom lip quivering because I've had a really bad experience back at home the last time I was there. My dad's moved down to Cambridge, but he's got himself arrested and locked up. My mum's just behaving really bad. She's moving down to London, whether I'm going with her or not, and I'm only like 15 or 16. I'm thinking, what the fuck am I supposed to do, you know? And I can feel my bottom lip quivering because I'm going back to a house that, again, has no electricity. It's cold. Everything's cut off. And as the players get off the bus, I get off as well. And I just say, nah, I'm not having this. And I run away. And I go to hide in the toilets or behind the garage or something like that. And obviously keep the players for like 25, 30 minutes. Nobody can find me eventually. I think it's Gary Parker who's found me. I'm crying my eyes out. And he's gone, look, what's going on? And I'm saying, Parks, I can't go back. I really can't. And he's like, listen, son, you need to explain it to the gaffer. You need to tell him what's happening, and you know, you can't just like run away. That's not going to work. So I went back, and for the first time I started explaining to him some of the things that had happened, some of the things that were going on. Didn't ever tell him my dad was a drug dealer. Really didn't tell him my mum and dad were petty criminals or that we had to shoplift or stuff, but just talked a little bit about some of the abuse. And he's going, right, I'm not having that. I'm not sure what you're going to do yet. But you can come back down and stay with us a little bit longer while we work it out. And then he sent me back down, like, get some crisps and some pop and stop crying. He looked like a little. So I've done that. I've gone back, fell asleep, woke up in Sandy Acre, obviously like proper relieved, and just went back to Quandon. The next morning, he sent me out to walk Del the dog around the cricket ground because him, Nigel and Simon, the men of the house, are having a meeting to discuss what to do with me. And I get to literally the bottom of the gate, not even out of the gate. He shouts me back. He's gone, Rigger, come back, son. Don't worry about taking the dog for a walk. Just come back. We've decided. And he's gone, you're coming to live with us. We're not sure what to do with you. You can either work for our Simon or you can play football. And I'm like, I play football. Cheers, Brian.
So you must have got on well with Simon and Nigel and Elizabeth.
Yeah, Simon, and I mean, again, the relationship developed. The stuff that I have to talk about later on, but Simon was just incredible. He's like a brother. Nigel as well. Nigel taught me how to shave. Things like that. It got me my first pair of contact lenses because everybody was calling me Specky Twat. So just brilliant. And Elizabeth, again, super sarcastic. She could she's like a dad like that. She could kill you with a look or with a line. But also she kind of taught me how to behave around girls. Weird to say, just watching and just listening and stuff like that, realising like you can't say that, you can't behave like that. For Christ's sakes, don't wear that. I remember the first time I went to New York with the Players, which is a nightclub in Nottingham. I've gone with the youth team players after, who I was also close with. Some great lads there, but I've gone to New York, and I've got on one of Brian's suit jackets in a nightclub at like 2:00 in the morning, thinking I'm as cool as custard. Everybody else is in like Ted Baker's, Paul Smith shirts, psychedelic, all kinds. And I'm sitting there with one of Brian's jackets on with gold buttons on the front. Elizabeth's like, he did what? Craig, for Christ's sakes, you can't do that. But I just used to like, if ever I was going out for like to meet anybody, I've got like 2 different wardrobes. So I've got Brian's wardrobe, but then I've also got like the cool stuff that Nige gives me. So I could open a sports shop with it. Literally.
Let's borrow Nigel Clough's jacket, Brian Clough's jacket to go out in. Man.
So when you're back, you're full time. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis?
The first 9 months were intense because I hadn't left school yet. I was still only 15. Brian's made me go back to school until December and get a letter from the school saying I can leave early.
You back with your mum?
Just for like 3 or 4 weeks, I think, from November to the end of December. And then January, I'm meeting him in Sheffield, and I haven't told my mum I'm going down to leave. I've told her I'm going down for another holiday. So I've got like one bag with some stuff in, got to the bus station and said to my mum, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And she's like, come on, son, no, you won't. I know what's happening here. So she kind of twigged that I was going down without me saying. And we met him at Sheffield Hillsborough. We won that game. And they were going through a really bad spell at that point. I think they'd started the season really poorly. Not lost a lot, but drawn too many. Forest go on like a run where they win 13 games in a row and go unbeaten for 23. And I'm at every single one of them in the dugout, on the bus, first team dressing room. I'm training every day with them. I'm in Brian's office every day. And the players themselves then wanted me to be around. It got to the like Thursday and the players would be like, someone would come up and saying, you're coming tomorrow though, son, aren't you? Let me have a look at my diary.
Like match day with the other managers, like who's this whippersnapper? And
and that's like something that I've tried to describe before, but it's really incredibly difficult for me because I'm sitting on the bus and I'm looking around, and again, you get close to a certain group of players and they leave, and it takes a while for you to build a relationship. Like I remember the first time I met Piercy, I didn't like him. Not because of anything he did, just because he took over the captaincy from Ian Bowyer and he took over the left-back spot from Kenny Swain. And they were 2 blokes I loved.
Blessed.
So the next side of this is you're so close and you're in that environment and you're looking around and you're seeing Des Walker, like I say, Roy Keane, Steve Hodge, Nigel Clough, Gary Crosby, whoever, Scott Gemmell, everywhere you look, Tommy Gaynor, Terry Wilson. And these are proper superstars, proper leaders, and really like good blokes. But I'm one of them, so I can't be a fan. So when we're winning 3-0 and I'm in the dugout, I said this before, there's a couple of managers I took a real disliking to. Howard Wilkinson I didn't like. I didn't like Ferguson. I didn't like Ron Atkinson while he was at United. or anywhere else. And again, not for any reason, because they're good blokes. But Dalglish especially, brilliant player. Love watching him as a player and unbelievable things as a manager. But the times where when we scored at Anfield, I wanted to get out of the dugout and start flicking in the V's. Come on, you Scottish, get in, have that. And like every time I showed any excitement, Brian would be like, what have I told you? Shut up, keep your head down, sit down and say out. And what happened was, the first 3 months, I'm sitting next to him. And then when he realised how much I talked during the game, he kept moving me further and further back in the dugout. He's like, Jesus Christ, son, I've got work to do. I can't be listening to this, Shut up, watch the game.
I can't get me. You're just in the dugout, and he's there managing not a Premier League, but no Premier League team. He just can of pop, packet of crisp, and
Wrigley's chewing gum. I'd usually have to nick his glasses, which also used to really annoy him because I'd broke mine or lose mine, but I'd nick his glasses, one of the jackets on, sitting there. And I'm acting like a player. I'm walking around, signing autographs. Come give me that program, son. What do you mean you don't want it? You don't know who I am. Give it here. Players will sign 1 or 2, 3 or 4, and then they're like, all right, see you later. Get in the queue, lads. There's 150 of you. I'll get round to you all.
Do you think it ended up being like a good luck charm then?
I think so, yeah. I think for a certain period, it was that. But also, what else was I going to do on a Friday or Saturday afternoon? I'm working a couple of hours in the shop, but I'm not there full time. So I'm going with him to train. He used to get up super early and he'd put the papers out for Simon and get the shop ready before Simon opened, and then he'd go to the ground. So I'd go watch the lads train, sometimes try to get stuck in, but usually Archie Gemmell, the miserable bugger, would tell me to wait on the side or stuff like that. So walk down with the players, walk back with the players, dinner at the Jubilee Club, back into Brian's office, £6 out of his car ashtray so I could stick it in the fruit machine, wait for him to tell one of his stories or have his interviews, and then I'd go and do a couple of hours in the shop, and then we'd be back home.
And that was that Brian's shop? Did he have the shop? Is that
right? I think there was a point where he was part owner with one of the ex-Forest directors. Right. But then I think they bought him out totally, so it was Brian's shop, but Brian and Simon. So Simon will have definitely put some of his money in as well. So it turned out to be Simon's shop.
Do you know, after a game, would you know, if they got beat, would you just know to just sit there and shut up?
Yeah.
Don't?
Yeah.
What was his mood like?
It wasn't always if they got beat. Sometimes if they got beat but they played well, he was buzzing. Sometimes if they won. I remember we beat Charlton 4-0 at home. And he's just he's gone nuts. He's gone absolutely mental. And I talked to him afterwards on the cricket ground. I'm like, you've got to enjoy 4-0. And he's like, yeah, but if we play like that against somebody else, we'll get done. And that was the point where he started tweaking his side a little bit, getting rid of 1 or 2 of them. So there's 2 sides of it. There's the side where he could be buzzing and he could say beautiful things. There's a side where he could destroy somebody. But there are also times where I think the coaches themselves knew if it was going to be a massive bollocking and they just shut the door for 10 minutes. So you don't want to be in here now, son. We'll open the door when it's right to come in. I never really saw him massively lose the plot. For example, I didn't see him punch Roy. I was outside the dressing room when he punched Roy Keane in the stomach. Stuff like that, I missed that because everybody else could also judge when he was gonna dish the bolligans out. I don't want to be anywhere near that. You could be doing anything. You could just move the chewing gum in the wrong direction. It'd be like, whoosh.
You mentioned Keane there. How was he with you, Roy Keane?
Keane, he was, I also know, I don't know him now, yeah, but I know he's one of those who gets pissed off when people talk about how they used to know him. Keane, he was just incredible. He's 6 months older than me, maybe just a year. I just remember him walking in. The first time I saw him was at Sutton. We played away in a friendly at Sutton and we were 2-0 down. And Archie was playing Scott in the centre of midfield. Roy had come across for a trial. And Brian had to literally get Archie to pull Scott off. He wasn't going to take him off to play Roy. Roy played for 20 minutes and I've never seen anything like it. He's like that. I mean, it's before he got physical and big. He was absolutely all over the place. I mean, just the amount of running he did, the amount of tackling, heading, we drew the game 2-2. Then obviously he's gone to play, they hadn't given him a contract at that point. The Liverpool debut thing is just surreal because he's played for the reserves. I think if I remember, played for the reserves on Monday and they took him off after 60 minutes and Roy thinks they're going to send him home because he's not done well. Brian's taking him off after 60 minutes because he's giving him his debut against Liverpool on Wednesday. And he didn't tell Roy. So he's got Wednesday morning. I'm meant to be travelling. I didn't go on the coach this time. I'm meant to be travelling down with Brian and Ronnie Fenton. And Brian gets a call. There's a couple of players gone sick. So we're going to bring young Phil Starbuck as well. So Roy Keane and Phil Starbuck come to Brian's house to get experience, like bring your boots, just have a walk on the pitch, get some experience. Keeney's starting at Anfield. And again, just like, I don't know how old he is, 18 maybe. But to go to Anfield and play the way he did was incredible. We went walking around the cricket ground on the night after, and I knew Roy had played well. And I'm like, geez, Roy he's like the Irishman was special. And he's playing on Saturday for sure. And there's something that's like, if he ever sees me, he might put like a hit out on me for this. We're playing Man City away, and I think this is positive, but my publisher pulled it out of the book in case Roy got knocked about it. We're playing away at Man City, and I think we get done 3-0. And we'll get back on the bus, and the atmosphere on the bus when you've lost isn't great. Piercy's done something weird during the game where the ball's gone under his foot. He's miscontrolled it just totally. And he's launched into the linesman, tried to blame the linesman for it, for catching his attention. Everybody's like, Skipper, it was shit. Just admit it was shit.
So Pierce has fucked up and blamed the linesman?
Yeah, for
That's a new one.
For catching his eye. And you don't want to get bollocked off Piercy. Piercy was like the sharpest, funniest bloke in the world, but also just man, his thighs. So we're playing cards, and it's split into different tables. Keane, Piers Walker, Keane, and somebody else. Anyway, Roy's halfway through the game, he's gone quiet, and he's just poked his head round one of the chairs. He's gone, lads, I need to ask something. And the lads have gone, go on. He's gone, when you're playing, do you sometimes get a semi on? And the lads are like, Roy, what the fuck? No, of course not. And Roy's gone, I can't explain it. Just sometimes when I'm running, like today, we hadn't even scored. We'd only got a corner, and I looked down and I've got a lob on. And the players have just absolutely launched into him. Just launched. So I've sat there, being the lovely lad that I am, and I've gone, hey, Roy, mate, don't worry about it. I said, it happens. I said, sometimes I get a semi on just sitting on the bus. And he's like, why the fuck would you tell me that? He's like, what? You've got one now, haven't you? Hey, lads. I'm like, cheers, Roy. Try to stick up for him. But that's just the passion. I never ever met anybody at that point who had the passion that Roy had for the game and the sheer desire. And although I don't know him, man alive, I'm proud of him for what he did and the person that he's become. I know he can be narky and, difficult, but the person that he's become, the way he handles himself, he's just to me, he's a god. I love him, even though I don't know him.
I'm proud of him for getting a semi on, for getting a corner, man.
There's passion.
Not even a goal.
There's having passion for football, but arousal.
Imagine that getting a penalty. Ref, just give me 5. Whoa, calm down, Bess. Come on, calm down.
You can imagine the lads, though. The lads are like, no one noticed, Roy.
Get in the water, and he pulled his groin again. He's putting it out.
Just unreal, lad. I mean, he had that desire. Absolutely brilliant. Great lad. And was superb in the relegation season. He didn't deserve to go down. As much as the club didn't, Keeney didn't. He was magnificent that season, a real leader.
You mentioned the cricket club. Was that a routine after a game? You'd get back and you and...
Yeah, we'd walk around.
What did you talk about? The game?
So it depended. A lot of the time, he didn't like to talk shop. And certainly when he liked to talk shop, he liked to talk shop more with Simon. Nigel didn't really want to talk about it. You know, it's like even when Brian tried to praise him, Nigel's like, I've just done my job. You know, I've just done my job. That's it. Like, you know, let's not talk about it. It's done. It's over. But me and him used to, like, we'd have half an hour talking about, he'd say to my son, he said, who do you think was the best player on the pitch? Or who do you think was like man of the match? And I'd say, I'd give it Bing, Gary Crosby. And he'd say, why would you give it Crosby? I'd be like, because he stuck the cross in. He'd be like, son, Harry Elizabeth could have stuck that cross in. Piercy won us the game with a challenge on the edge of the area. And he'd like point out things where the players had done something that I hadn't even, and why would I? I hadn't even twigged, I hadn't even seen. And I mentioned earlier as well, the thing he was fantastic at was spotting who was having a great game from our side and which player of theirs to exploit. He'd have it in an instant, and the second he spotted it, he'd get out onto the pitch, get the ball to Bing, get the ball to Parks, get the ball to Nige, take him on, keep taking him on. Things like that he spotted in the game were just unreal.
You know, when you were saying you spent a lot of time in his office, you know, you just sat, would you still be sat in the office when, say, a player come knocking on his door?
Again, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Depended what it was. And
would he just ask you to leave?
Usually depended on the player as well.
Right.
So if the player didn't say anything, I'd stay. Like the time Tommy Gaynor went in and asked why he'd been dropped. When he'd scored a hat-trick against Chester, I think, in the Cup. Might have been Hereford, actually. Scored a hat-trick and then got dropped for the Saturday against Luton for the league game. And he's walked in, he's like, Gaffer, what do I have to do? You know, you put me in, I score a hat-trick, you drop me next game. And Brian's like, listen, I'm sorry, Tommy, but, you know, fair play. But he also said something that he regretted massively. He said, a hat-trick against Chester counts for nought, son. And Tommy Gaynor turned round and said something along the lines of, if you got a hat-trick against anybody and your gaffer said it counted for nought, how would you feel? And Brian, obviously being a goal scorer, that twigged with him. So we're round at the cricket ground on the night, and he's like, how do you think I handled that? And I'm like, well, Brian, you know, Tommy said, how would you react if your manager did that? He said, I'd cut his balls off. And I said, yeah, fair enough. Tommy played in every single League Cup game after that, including the final.
To take things on board?
Yeah, I think so. I think there were times where he probably just wanted to talk, and he didn't always want to do it in the house or around others. So it was just that. But also I was a cheeky little bugger. I used to ask him. Maybe others didn't. You know, I'd insist on asking questions about the game and stuff like that. So there was that side of it as well. He like regularly tell me just to shut up, he's had enough. You know, Riggy, you can talk that off a donkey, son. Just like, you know, give it a rest, give it a break. But there was probably part of that. And as I say, he used to respect the opinion of Simon a lot. Simon's chief scout at Mansfield now, and has been chief scout wherever Nigel goes.
How did you see that relationship between Brian and Nigel? You know, Nigel's obviously separated things, but you can see it on a... Did it work well? Because obviously we've talked about Alex Bruce and Steve Bruce, you know, that the other lads thinking, oh, he's a bit of... You know, you tell him something, it's going back to his dad's a bit snaky. Was it... From Brian's side, was it divided as well? I don't mean
to like, you know, disrespect Steve Bruce and Alex Bruce, but totally different level. Totally different level manager, totally different level player. It definitely worked because, you know, Nige for 4 seasons got 20 goals a season for 4 seasons in a row. Top scorer for like 7 out of his 11 seasons there. So it definitely worked. You know, I cannot describe how biased I am towards Nige. For me, he's been football for 30 years. He's the reason I watch football. And I would walk home like literally buzzing because, you know, he got a hat-trick against QPR in 4 minutes. He got a hat-trick against Coventry in 11 minutes. He scored 2 absolute wonder goals at Luton. He scored a goal against Southampton where, if you YouTube it, he's literally turned into Maradona. Nigel Clough's turned into Maradona. It's like just beaten about 68 people twice. And we get home and I'd want to say to him, Nige, well done. And he's just like, don't want to talk about it. So I think he was that kind of person who didn't accept praise easily. And probably still like that now as a manager.
So it was tough love from his dad? Tough love? Right?
Yeah, but I think even if he'd have tried the other approach, I'm not sure Nigel would have accepted it because I think they both recognised there had to be that distance. There had to be. But when they're home, it's normal.
What was Clough's thoughts on the lads going out and that?
He encouraged it for team bonding. Not like get out and get absolutely larruped, but get out and have a few beers.
Did he know that the lads were when the lads were out?
Yeah, he knew everything about everybody always. Like literally, he'd have somebody had come back and tell him. That led to probably one of his most difficult decisions as a manager with Norm again, with Mark Crossley, before the Portsmouth Cup tie. Norm's gone out on the lash and ended up getting in a bit of bother. The story gets blown up, totally blown up, that somewhere it turned into Norm attacking somebody with a hammer and getting locked up on the Friday night before the Saturday morning, when actually it was the Thursday night, and he's just pushed the bloke.
I'm going to say, so there was still an hammer, but he just pushed him.
Not as far as I know. I mean, and again, you know, but Brian knew about it like 30 minutes after. Norm's gone to play at Portsmouth and ended up dropping across, and we got knocked out of the cup against Portsmouth in the 6th round. And Brian loved Norm. No matter that he called him shithouse and imbecile, he really liked Norm. And he dropped him. And I think there was a point where he was really, really close to sending him, to transferring him. And I remember just before the League Cup final, that year, 92 it is, we get to the Simod Cup final and the Rumbelows Cup final. And I think Andy Marriott has played 9 or 10 games in goal. And Brian played him for the Simod Cup final and put Norm back in goal for the Rumbelows Cup. And he always said it was one of the most difficult decisions he ever made. First of all, to leave him out, and then secondly, to bring him back in because he wasn't sure he'd punished him enough. Norm nearly cost himself his career.
He shouldn't have been out on the Thursday then, should he?
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules were. You know, then I think it was a bit more relaxed. I think Thursday might be okay.
When would you have gone back with Brian after winning the League Cup?
Class. Absolute class. So the League Cup is sensational for me. I'm down with them in the hotel on the night. They've not gone to a flash hotel. They've stayed in a hotel off the back of a service station in South Mims, just before you get to the end of the M1, I think, or maybe just off. Just it's not a little chef and it's not like a whatever it is, travel lodge, but it's not far. Gone to the game. I'm on the team bus beforehand, getting myself all dolled up because I remember the FA Cup finals and I think the telly's going to be with us. For some reason they decided not to take the tally. But I'm in the dressing room, warming up with them. I go out onto the pitch for the warm-up. I've talked about this before. Launch one in from 25 yards at Wembley.
At Wembley?
Just like, boom, top corner. Walk off giving it big licks. It was meant to be sitting in the dugout or on the dugout. It's not like closed, but on the dugout on the track with him. And they went out and counted the spots, and there wasn't enough spots. He took down a guy called Mick Danzy, who was a second-year pro, and he took him down for the experience. And Mick sat on the side. I've ended up getting like a dressing room pass and stuff like that, straight back down at the end of the game. Obviously, we've done him 3-1. Again, Nige gets 2 goals. Man of the match, Sam was proud as punch. Gary Parker throws me in the bath after at Wembley. Picture of me in my change of clothes, like Marks and Spencer sweater that's too big, shitty brown chinos that are too tight, when I had like a cool trackie on beforehand. On the team bus, going back, celebrating, and I'll never forget this. I'd asked Webby and Piercy on the way down about the contracts, because they were both out of contract and United were apparently interested in them both. Gone up to Pierce and I said, you know, skipper, or Stuart, I probably call him Stuart, are you staying? And he's gone, come on, son, you can't ask me that. And I've gone, Stuart, we're mates, of course I can ask you. And he's gone, all right, but don't tell the gaffer, because we're still in negotiations. Yeah, I'm signing. I'm like, fucking get in, psycho. Go to Webby, are you staying? You can't ask me that, Craig. I'm going, Webby, we're mates. I don't care that we're mates, you can't ask me. I knew he was off then. We get back, we're on the team bus. Webby's giving it big licks with a cup, the thing on his head, drinking beer. Trackies rolled all the way up. Tommy, you'll do for me, son. Tommy Gaynor, you'll do for me. I'm going nowhere, Tommy, you'll do for me. 2 weeks later, the fat twat signed for Man United. That's why the Forest fans call him Fat Wallet, because of that. And the fact he was slightly chunky. So anyway, we've got we get home, we get to San Diego. Brian takes the little Woods Cup, puts it in the boot of his Mercedes, wrapped in a towel, puts it in the boot of his Mercedes, drives off. A cup. I mean, can you imagine like a manager taking the FA
Wants
Cup?
it for it at all.
Stuck it in his Mercedes. We got home. We stopped off at the fish and chip shop, Mr. Mo's in Alice Street, bought up everything that he had left because it's like 10:20, gone home, stuck the little Woods Cup on top of the television. He's got his feet up in the chair. Elizabeth put on Victoria Wood on the television or on the video, and we've all sat there having a beer. And he just turned around and he said, "Doesn't get any better than this," with a little Woods Cup on the television.
So he's not bothered about going out and having a party and all that. He's just
Lapping
happy.
up the adulation.
It was the first major trophy he'd won for a while. So, for him, it was like, I'm back. He had this thing, I watched an interview where he once said, I'll still be here next season and the season after and the season after, and I shall still deliver you a trophy. And for 4 seasons now. So, to win it in 89 without Pete, I think was special for him. Because everybody had been saying he could only do it with Peter Taylor.
Yeah.
How long did you end up living with him then?
5 years, till I was 20.
And how did that come about? That you just have to find your own place to live, or?
No, he always found me places to live. So when I was 18, 19, started getting like gradually more independent. So he'd rent me a flat. I'd go and stay there for a bit and then go back. I'd be in the players' digs for a bit and then go back. And the ending, I don't know if I might cry for this. And nobody's asked me about it, but obviously everybody knows because it's in the book. I let them down. I brought my mate down from Sunderland, and my mates were coming down very, very regularly. Brian's inviting them into the office, taking them to games. They're going back with all of my, sports gear. My wardrobe's empty every time they go back. And I invited one of my mates to live with us permanently. I'd got myself a flat. I got him a job in a carpet shop as a carpet fitter and said, look, you can share half my money. Whatever I had went on the mantelpiece, and we lived together. And after about 2 months of that, Simon said to me, if he was looking for a job, why didn't you bring him to work for me? And I'm like, I didn't think you liked him. And he's going, it doesn't really matter whether I like him or not. He's a mate of yours. So if he wants, he can come and work in the shop. And we went to work in the shop, and everything was okay for a while. And then one time just before Christmas, we'd help ourselves to a bit of stock, I've got to be honest. We'd have like the odd Mars bar, the odd can of pop and stuff like that without paying. But one time before Christmas, I'm meant to be going back down to London with my mum. My mum's moved to Harrow. And I've gone back home because I've forgotten something. And I've got a bed, but because the flat's small, there isn't room for 2 beds. He's got a mattress on the floor next to it. And I've walked over the mattress and I felt something crunch under my feet. And I lifted up and there's 15, 21 pound coin bags there, 300 quid in it. And I've waited for him to come back and I'm like, what the fuck's that? And he's gone, I've been taking it out of the shop over the last couple of weeks. And instead of doing the right thing and, bombing him out and doing it, I took half. And then that led to a period over the next 12 months where we stole from the shop on a regular basis.
Can you remember, you said before about you just wanted to, about your mates from back home, you just wanted to be accepted and be liked. Was there a bit of that in it where you thought the right thing to do would be to go to Simon and say, me loyalties lie with you? But was there a point of,
look, I can't shift the blame totally because I was like as heavily involved. I should have stopped it early, but I didn't. And then it got bad to the extent that Simon and Nigel came to talk to me about it. Not about exactly it, but they said, look, there's something going on. We need to suspend you for a week. we want you to go away and think we'll pay you, but we want you to go away and think about where your loyalties lie. Take a week off and we'll talk after the end of the week. And I just lost the plot with him. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, nothing's going on, blah, 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 blah. So in the end, what actually happened was Simon sold the shop and just said, look, lads, didn't say anything about stealing or anything, just said, look, I'm selling the shop. There's nowhere for you to work anymore. Gave us 800 quid. So we had enough to pay rent and said, you know, thanks very much and you're off. And that was that.
Was that them washing the hands of you?
Yeah. As much as being that close, I still went to see them a couple of times after. And I knew that something was wrong, but again, they didn't tell me what. It was only in 1995 when Brian came up to do a book signing at Roker Park. I'd moved back up to Sunderland at that point. Brian came to do a book signing at Roker Park, and he sat me down and he said, son, we know you were stealing. And it just like, and he said to me, look, what you need to do. I tried to deny it. He said, we nearly called the police. The only reason we didn't call the police is because we took you down to give you a better life. And if we'd have called the police, that would have been your life over. So we decided to cut you loose. What you need to do is get yourself sorted out, get back down to Nottingham, get out of this shithole. And when you're back on your feet, come and see us again. And I never went to see him again.
He's willing to give you that another chance.
See, even that's like incredible, isn't it? Mm. The way that they've just dealt with that whole situation, just like classing it.
It took me, and I mean, you know, I've said this a lot, and whether people believe it or not, I'm now 49, nearly 50, so it's 30 years after. It's destroyed me. As a person, it's destroyed me. I've gone on to be very, very successful because I somehow managed to park it. But it's destroyed me as a person, especially when I started writing the book again, because I had to go back and remember how I betrayed them and what I'd done and how I wasn't brave enough. Even when he told me to be brave enough, I wasn't brave enough to go and see him before he passed. So when he passed, and that was a horrible day for me, but when he passed, I just made a decision to myself that what I need to do now is stop being a coward and go and face the family, first of all, to apologise, but also secondly, and more importantly, to thank them. Because not only that first part of my life where they saved me from hell, the second bit of my life where they've not done what they could have done, which would have destroyed me, but the third part of my life is they built me as a person. They gave me everything I needed to be successful, to be nice, to be decent. And I learned, I just didn't learn quick enough. And it took me about 2.5 years to step back and realise that if I just did what they told me to do and listened to Simon and listened to Nigel, even though they're not with me anymore, I can be anything that I want to be, because that's what they kept telling me. And that was what happened to me for pretty much the rest of my life. I've tried to be as good as I can be. I've tried to be a leader instead of a follower. And, you know, that's why the book's called Be Good, Love Brian, because I've just tried to be good. And I will, because of him and because of them and the beautiful thing they did.
Can you remember the first time you saw Simon and Nigel again?
Yeah.
How was that?
I saw Mrs. Clough first.
Intentionally?
Yeah. Intentionally, I didn't know for sure she was going to be there, but once she was there, it was intentionally her first. Burton were playing Burscough in the FA Cup in 2006, and I was doing quite well, so I sponsored a couple of games, sponsor the programme, sponsor a game, sponsor a couple of the players. Stupidly my way of just like trying to keep in, even though I'm sure that they didn't want it. You know, Nigel certainly doesn't need me as a fan, and yet I am. And I just saw Mrs. Clough while I was in the corporate area. And I just went up and I said, Mrs. Clough, can I have a word? And she said, of course you can, son. I gave her a hug. I said, look, you know how sorry I am? And she said, I think I do. I'd sent them a couple of newspaper articles where there was like an interview with me being successful at work or in business. And I'd sent them and she said, look, we've seen the newspaper cuttings. We're proud of you. Brian would be proud of you. All we ever wanted for you was a better life. And, you know, you've done that, but you let us down. And you know us, once you're out, you're out. That was Mrs. Clough.
I can imagine that were the worst bit. You've let us down.
Yeah. How and why and what for? And what kind of person am I? You know, am I that little shitty little scavenging kid from Southwick, or am I the person that I think I am, which is decent and a nice character? And it still hurts me to this day. And I don't want to make the interview depressing after the fantastic and incredible and beautiful, beautiful things that they did. But also it wouldn't be fair not to be honest and not to tell the story just because it might affect me negatively. I want people to know what they did and what they were like and how they took this little kid with no hope whatsoever and totally transformed everything about him.
But everything what they did is remarkable, really, up to that point, you know. And not a story I'd certainly not heard it before you'd written the book. So not done for, like you said, self-serving reasons. It was to help you, wasn't it? It wasn't published in the press. It wasn't there for
that's
their own
also been
personal
important
reasons.
for me, you know. People have asked me why it wasn't done. It was timing. It was just wrong circumstances and stuff like that. But I also didn't want to be seen to be selling him out and to be, you know, profiting from. There's a lot of people who have profited from stories about Brian. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to give as much as I humanly can of the proceeds of the book to charity and underprivileged kids. Because what I would like to do and love to do, I'm never going to have the impact that he had on me, ever. It's just impossible. But I would like to, in any possible small way that I can, have the impact on some little kid who might be in the same situation at 15 or 16, not knowing which direction to go in.
It's fair play, mate, because you can't take back what you did. You know, it's done. But all you can do is try and be better, like you're doing.
Take the positives out of everything.
And then, you know, to go on a happy note, the time I locked it away was nice. The time I opened it up was difficult, but it's something I had to face. Now, whenever, unless I'm talking about that side of it where I go shaky, whenever I see any of them, I see a smile and I see us enjoying ourselves and laughing and, you know, doing incredible things. And that's the whole family. I miss them more than I miss any other part of the lifestyle. More than I miss the football, more than I miss the wealth, the comfort. I miss the family. I really, really, really miss Simon. Simon's just an incredible bloke.
So do you not speak to Simon?
Yeah, I do.
Are you back in contact with Simon and Nigel? Or
Nigel, not so much. But you know, I'll occasionally rock up at a game and say hello, and we'll have 2 minutes. Simon is just, you know, he's the kind of person, I think, and again, it shows the kind of class that he is, that we're in contact and we do communicate a lot about football. I love talking to him about football as much as I can. And he is the one that I can say I'm still in contact with, and I'm just like so grateful to him for being like that.
That's brilliant from Simon, though, isn't it? Just everything about it. The way he handled it
Building
when
the
he
bridge
knew,
again.
but didn't throw you under the bus.
I mean,
Sold the shop, but
to give us 800 quid to sort us out for 10 weeks, you know, just
it's fucking
brilliant.
unbelievable.
Just brilliant, because it's the last thing we deserved.
I think the thing that most resounding thing that I've took from this is nothing to do with Brian Clough, the football manager. It's just Brian Clough, the fella.
The person.
The whole family.
Well, yeah. Yeah, just the Clough family in general. It's just mind blowing what they did, really.
I think that's the nice thing. And it was also important. It's not like a kiss his ass tribute book, but it is. And I wanted people to see that side of him, to know that it exists, because some do, but not many. Some have this picture of him being brash and arrogant and conceited and brilliant and confident, and he's all of those things. But he was also just a lovely, lovely bloke with a big heart.
What's your favourite memory of him? I know you might have talked about it, but...
Sitting in his office, listening to him talk about how he got his old big head name. He'd have his chair back and he'd be smiling. He used to have this thing, his laugh was really contagious. He'd almost laugh himself to tears, and everybody else in the room would be going. And it'd be somebody, Jeffrey Boycott or somebody like that, be sitting there, and he'd be like, lads, let me tell you about this. He says, you're not going to believe it, but when I was at school, I used to get bullied a bit. And like people's reaction, why? What happened? And he said, well, I had really big tabs, and obviously I had really big head. So they used to call me Big Head when I was a kid. And he said, I remember one afternoon going home, crying to my mum. My mum's in the kitchen, and I've gone in, and she's like, Brian, what's the matter, son? What's the matter? And he's gone, Mum, they're bullying me at school. And she's gone, what? Why? And they're saying I've got a big head, Mum. They're saying I've got big tabs and I'm big-headed. And she's gone, son, you're not big-headed. You're beautiful. You haven't got a big head at all. Do me a favour, will you, son? Go and get me 2 stone of potatoes from the shop for dinner. And he's like, right, Mum, I will. Starts looking for a bag in the drawer. And his mum's like, what are you doing? He's saying, I'm looking for a bag. She said, you don't need a bag. You can carry it in your cap. And then he goes, wee! True story, lads. True story. That's probably my favourite memory of him. That's remember him laugh. Yeah. Remember him laugh, and remember how, like, you know, talked about it off air. He wasn't just funny, he was quick. He was quick with a whip, quick with a dig, quick with a remark, quick with generosity, quick with giving his own time. And I remember that more than anything else.
Oh, but cheers for your time, mate.
Thank you very much for that, mate.
Lads, it's
really
been,
appreciate it.
First of all, a pleasure, but secondly, like, an honour to be on this kind of show. You know, I watch you a lot. The banter's maybe not been as good quality today as normal.
No, I think it's just been mind-blowing.
Yeah, it has.
I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me.
Cheers, mate.
An unbelievable story, unbelievable experience. We appreciate you sharing it with us.
Cheers. Thank you.
If anyone wants to buy the book, it's still available?
It is still available.
Yeah.
You can get that Amazon for $9.99, I think. $8.75 for the paperback, £9 for the hardback. Or I've got a couple of copies at home. If you drop me a message, I'll send you one for £25 plus postage and packing.
Top man, mate. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks, fellas.
Cheers, Craig.